Hey guys, I'm Dr. Garcia. We're here in Orange County, California at the Pacific Coast Kinesiology Center. It's our wellness center, and we're talking to you guys today about metabolism hacks. Okay, this is how to improve your metabolism, right? We know that there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, that their metabolism is sluggish, and they've tried. They've, dieted the best that they know how. They've, eaten less. They've, eaten the right foods. Maybe they went on a low-carb diet. They've exercised. They're doing all the right steps, but they're not able to lose weight. This is called weight loss resistance, and it's really common. So that's a problem with metabolism if you have weight loss resistance. There's another group of people that have what's called metabolic syndrome. Okay, this is an insulin problem. This is what's called insulin resistance or pre-diabetes. Okay, again, it's a problem with metabolism. Or maybe you have diabetes, like full-blown diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Again, that's a problem with metabolism. And specifically what we're talking about is what fuel your body uses. So our bodies can use fat for energy, and our cells can use sugar for energy. We can't use both at the same time. The body chooses. It's going to prefer one or it's going to prefer the other. And when your metabolism isn't working, most of the time it's because the body is stuck burning sugar and it's not burning fat. Okay, we call this being fat adapted. So if you are fat adapted, that means that your body is very comfortable using fat for energy. If you skip a meal, it's no big deal because your body just starts to use its fat. If you are fasting, if you're trying to do intermittent fasting and you're able to do it very easily, that's great. That means your body's likely fat adapted. If you're struggling with intermittent fasting, if you get shaky between meals, if your blood sugar, if you have like hypoglycemia, okay, this is a problem with your metabolism. It means that your body requires sugar and it can't use fat for fuel or fat for energy. All right. So we've been doing a series about explaining how to get your body more fat adapted, how to fix your metabolism. Right, so we've talked about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is amazing. It's a really amazing way to become fat adapted, to train your body to use fat for energy to get off the sugar. Okay, so if you haven't seen the past 3 videos on the basics of intermittent fasting, the benefits of intermittent fasting, and then troubleshooting, please go back and watch those because it's really good information on how to properly intermittent fast. Today we're going to kind of continue. We're going to talk about something that's called the insulin index. All right. So one of the main reasons why people are stuck burning sugar and they're not able to burn fat is because insulin levels are too high. There are a lot of you guys out there walking around right now that your insulin levels are elevated, but you don't know it because conventional lab tests, most doctors don't test for insulin. They test for blood sugar. They test maybe like what's called hemoglobin A1C. And maybe they look at your cholesterol levels and they use these markers to determine if you have a metabolic issue. We really should be looking at insulin as well. Fasting insulin is a underused marker for determining how healthy our cells are. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about the difference between what's called the glycemic index and the insulin index. So the glycemic index, I think a lot of you guys maybe have heard about this. I know a lot of my patients have heard about the glycemic index. All right, this is how much, if you eat a specific food, how much that food increases your glucose, okay, compared to straight sugar, right? And so the sugary foods, the flour-based products, the starchy foods, potatoes and cereals and breads and crackers and cookies, those things tend to have a high glycemic index, which means that they raise your blood sugar. And if your blood sugar goes up, then your insulin is going to go up as well. All right. So over time, if you have too high of a glycemic index diet, that's going to cause high insulin levels. And high insulin breaks your metabolism. Okay, but I want to introduce you today to something that's called the insulin index. This is the same general idea. It's the amount of, with a specific food, how a specific food is going to increase your insulin, again, compared to glucose. Okay, and I think some of the values might be a little bit surprising to you, right? And hopefully this will shed some light on maybe why your metabolism is still sluggish. Okay, so the insulin index, what we know is that vegetables tend to have a very minimal effect on insulin, especially the green vegetables. Okay, but when we start looking at fats and proteins and sugars, those are going to have a lot more of an effect. So let's talk about the specifics of this insulin index. Okay, so these are examples. Butter has an insulin index of 2. That means that it has a very minimal effect on raising your insulin. Olive oil's a 3. Avocados are a 4. Walnuts are a 5. Heavy cream is a 5. Egg yolks are a 16. That's still pretty low. So if you notice, these are fats. These are healthy fats. So healthy fats tend to have a very low effect or very minimal effect on your insulin. Okay, so let's keep going. Then we look at the whole egg, okay, which is 23, and egg whites actually are up at 55. Steak is at 37. Okay, that's not like really low. If you look at that compared to the glycemic index, so steak has or protein in general, like meat, has a very minimal glycemic effect, right? So it doesn't raise your blood sugar, but that doesn't translate into the insulin effect. Proteins do increase your insulin, okay? And that's a really important point that I want you to understand, is that, so I don't know, maybe you guys have heard of the Atkins diet, right? This was a lower carb, higher protein diet. And for a lot of people, this diet was effective, at least initially, because it was a low glycemic index diet. So it lowered glucose, okay, which tended to have a lowering of insulin. Okay, so there was some weight loss, there was some improved metabolism, okay, but as the longer that people followed the Atkins diet, it started to not work as well. And the reason why is because the Atkins diet tends to have a high focus on animal proteins, like steak and chicken and beef. And these things do increase your insulin. Okay, so we're not saying that these are bad. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just want you to be aware that protein can increase your insulin. And if your insulin level is too high, that can be a problem. Okay, so for people that are at their ideal weight, people that are exercising regularly, they're lifting weights, they're exercising at a pretty good level, protein is going to be good for them because they don't have their metabolism's not broken. So having a little bit more insulin for those people is going to be fine. But for people that are weight loss resistant and do have these other problems that could be due to high insulin, then you have to just start to be aware of the amount of protein that you're getting. Okay. Another important point is that if we look at eggs, right? So egg yolks are at 16, egg whites are at 55. Okay. So how many of you guys out there have been thinking that you're eating egg white, like an egg white omelet, and you're doing that to lose weight because fat's bad for us, right? We got to lay off the fat and have the egg white. Well, the egg white is 55. That's a pretty high insulin index. So that's boosting your insulin up. So what we noticed, the other important point that we want to make here is that fat tends to be a buffer for insulin. So if you have an egg white, 55. If you have an egg yolk, 16? Combine that together, the whole egg is a 23. Okay, so what you should start seeing from that is fats, again, it's kind of like a buffer. It tends to lower the insulin index. So we're not saying, going back to protein, okay, we're not saying not to have a piece of beef, but what I would suggest is that you're probably going to want to have more of a fattier cut of beef. You don't want to go lean, You don't want to have a skinless chicken breast. You don't want to cut all the fat off of your steak. Okay, and I know this goes against what we think, right? We've been just brainwashed that fat is bad for us. We want to be on a low-fat diet. We want to cut out all that, that icky fat. It's the wrong thing to do. Okay, especially if we're trying to lose weight, if we're trying to improve our metabolism, if we're trying to lower insulin. Fat is our friend. Fat's very important. Okay, so kind of in summary, that's what we want to look at. Fat is very healthy. I want you guys to not be afraid to eat healthy fats. Okay, this is animal fats and butter, grass-fed butter, and ghee, and coconut oil and olive oil. Okay, these are very healthy. They don't cause heart attacks. They don't make us gain weight. They don't cause heart disease. And then also we want to be mindful of the amount of protein that we're eating, especially if we are struggling with a sluggish metabolism. Again, because protein can have an insulin effect, but if you have a healthy serving of fat with that protein, that's going to help pull the insulin down, and lowering your insulin is going to have a very beneficial effect on improving your metabolism in the long run. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, shoot me a note below, and we'll see you on the next video.